What's going on, Music Dicts? Thank you for joining us for today's episode. Today we're going to be talking about some of our favorite, most influential albums of all time. All right, what's going on, fellow Music Dicks?
Not much, Josh. What's going on?
You see it, another day, planning out recording for another wonderful podcast. Eric, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm surviving.
Surviving. I know that word, having children, surviving. Tristan's still a rock star.
Yeah,
Just
right.
like every other day of the week. He gets to party hard. We're going to bed early.
Yeah,
We would
right.
like to go to bed early. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes we're awake. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about some of our favorite, most influential albums as musicians and just as music listeners as a whole. I think you'll be surprised at some of the albums that we pick. I mean, some of the albums are probably a given, while some albums are going to be kind of off the wall, or, you know, for those of you that may know us or don't know us very well, be very different than what you would think. Tristan's shaking his head no. Yeah, a lot of Tool, a lot of Zeppelin, you
A
know.
lot of mine are probably just going to be really famous.
Yeah. So Tristan's got a couple Pink albums in there.
Ooh.
Some No Doubt.
Madonna,
Some Beethoven.
Nirvana.
For Nirvana, yeah. Tristan, we were talking, and Tristan was like, does Nirvana have 10 albums? Because I'm pretty sure if they have 10, they're my favorite. They're my all-time favorites, all 10 of them. Anyway, let's get started in this today. We're excited to bring this to you, and we hope you guys are excited to listen. The Music Dicks is brought to you by Crooked Fest. What's Crooked Fest, you may ask? Crooked Fest is a one-day music festival featuring 6 bands, those of which being The Crooked Roots, Hallion, Caleb Medlin, There Will Be Gorgons, Dearborn, and Howlin' Hollow. More bands to be announced. Admission is $10 at the gate. Bring your own food and beverages, and there are also campsites available if you would like to stay the night.
Crooked Fest, coming to a field near you.
It's crooked. All right, so as the host, I guess I'll kick everything off. I guess I'm the host. We're all co-hosts. So we'll start with me. And just so you guys know, we didn't rank these any like from 1 to 10 or anything like that. They're just kind of a list of 10 of our favorites or most influential albums. And I feel like we're going to probably talk about this one for a while, so we might as well just get it out there and get it over with now. So one of the ones on my list is Dark Side of the Moon. I mean,
Okay.
it's Dark Side of the Moon.
I mean, it's a fantastic album.
I
Yes,
mean,
it is.
To me, like, people will argue The Wall is probably, that's their favorite Pink Floyd album, or they think that's the greatest Pink Floyd album. I think Dark Side of the Moon's put together in a way where it's like listening to a movie in an audio form. Like, everything just, to me, that album just rolls together perfectly. Everything fits where it needs to be. It's just from front to the end, it's perfect. Not to mention, Great Gig in the Sky is on that, and Great Gig in the Sky to me is like a masterpiece in audio form to me. I mean, I just think it's incredible.
I think that's their quintessential album, honestly.
Yeah, and I feel like if you don't know Pink Floyd great, or if you're not a huge fan of them, or you're not super familiar with them, you've seen either the album cover or you've heard Money. I mean, like,
Yep.
Of course.
being a kid, I believe that just that you hear that cash register and that bass line come in, like, that's something that I remember very vividly. And like, I remember Dark Side of the Moon was one of the first albums that I remember receiving from my father and him being like, here you go, listen to this, because I'm sure he bought me albums and they weren't necessarily as important to me as an album should be to, I guess, a learning musician, however you want to say that. But like, I just remember how big of an impact that, because I'd never heard anything like Pink Floyd before. And like, I don't think there are many bands out there that are Pink Floyd.
No, not at all.
No,
I mean, you can do really
None.
well of trying to sound like Pink Floyd. And there's a lot of bands out there that sound like Pink Floyd, but like,
oh, sure, but none of them actually
A lot of
capture the
influence.
sound.
exactly. And we had kind of talked before we started recording. I am not a fan of Syd Barrett at all. I don't like the early Floyd albums.
Neither do I.
I feel like once Syd Barrett left the picture, that's when they became Floyd.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we'd kind of like it's really super trippy, but it's just too trippy for me in a way. Just like
I wouldn't even say that. It's
Yeah.
just too spread apart. It's not organized.
and I mean, to each their own. You got any way you want to describe it? I just don't think it's good. That's how I'll say.
I'm not a fan of it either.
Yeah, and
honestly.
I'm sure there's people out there that are like, you're an idiot. Like, Syd Barrett, Pink Floyd's incredible. That's great music. It's not for me, but to each their own. That's how music goes. It all hits us differently. I mean, what can you say about Pink Floyd that hasn't been said by knowledgeable musicians? Like, Dave Gilmour's probably one of the best guitar players of all time.
Easily. Very easily.
Very tasteful. I mean, you can pick him out when you hear him. It's one of those guitar players that you know it's him when you hear him.
Oh, absolutely.
He has one of the best clean tones in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, Roger Waters.
Yep.
I
One
mean,
of the best lyricists.
It's just it's a great band. I mean, they're really really good. It's sad that it kind of ended the way they did, because like my parents or my dad always talked about seeing Floyd, and it's like that was one of the bands that I really wish I'd gotten to see before. I don't know, before they were gone.
Waters is still touring.
Well, and I mean, Gilmore's still making albums.
Gilmore's still touring, and I think Roger Waters is still planning on touring.
I don't like Gilmore by himself though that much.
I do.
I say I like Gilmore by himself a lot better than I like.
Yeah, Roger Waters. I agree. There's an album for those of you that care. David Gilmour's, I think it's his first solo album after leaving Floyd. It's called Mahals, something like that. I think it's an incredible album. It's Gilmour by himself. I'm not sure that he played all the instruments on that. I think he did, but I may be wrong on that. For those of you that know, don't fact check me on that one. But I think it's a great album. I like David Gilmour by himself a lot.
Fact check him.
Yeah, fact check me. Prove me wrong. But I think it's a great album. There's things we could say about Dark Side of the Moon all day long, but did it make your guys' list?
Nope.
Not that album.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say it would probably make my list
If it was a wider range or you
top
had more time
10
to think
of all
about it.
time, like greatest, maybe it would make my list.
Yeah. I mean, I think
But
it's
favorite.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I really like the album, but one of the ones that was on my list was The Wall.
Well, go ahead. We'll just kick off. We'll go to you. We'll talk
Yeah.
about The Wall.
Yep.
I mean,
I
we're
mean,
already
The Wall,
on Pink Floyd.
basically everything you said about Dark Side of the Moon is how I felt about The Wall.
Yeah.
Because it tells a story very clearly.
Well, I really like The Wall. Don't get me wrong.
And it's got a lot of just awesome songs on it.
It's got a lot of great songs. To me, to each their own. I just don't think it's the album that Dark Side of the Moon is as a whole. A lot of great songs on The Wall. Just to me, like I said, influential. Whatever. We're not here to argue. I'm just saying.
No.
Yeah. I just think Dark Side of the Moon
Yeah,
to
we
me.
are.
It hits,
Like,
yeah, we are.
Right. It's just like the way Dark
Yeah.
Side of the Moon hits you is the way The Wall hits me.
That completely makes
I mean,
sense.
hey, you.
Yeah, exactly.
All the
Or
time you're into that. Like,
Well,
Comfortably Numb.
Comfortably Numb's on
Very
there.
true.
Exactly. I mean, The Wall, obviously.
Another Brick in the Wall.
What is it? I'm just a newborn.
Young Lust.
Yeah, Young Lust. There's a lot of
That
great.
is such a funky
Run
song.
Like Hell.
That's
yeah.
a great song too.
There's a lot of great songs on The Wall. Like, I'm not saying. Don't think that I'm saying like,
I
hey,
thi-
The Wall.
I
Doesn't
think they
have-
all just
I
kinda
think
like
Wish You
fit-
Were Here that's my favorite
That's
Pink Floyd album.
That's a good album, but
Yeah.
I think the songs on The Wall, they just all fit together in a really good way.
And The Wall's got a lot of tracks on it too.
I think so.
I mean,
23?
yeah, I was gonna say.
20
Whereas
songs.
Dark Side of the Moon's like 10,
26,
12, something
actually.
like that. I was gonna say it's a lot,
But
but
Dark Side of the Moon's 10. And
once again, whereas I said Dark Side of the Moon is like a movie on audio to me, I believe The Wall obviously is the same thing.
It is.
And I think that's something Pink Floyd was really good at, was like making
Capturing
Yeah.
just a picture in a whole album.
an
They were
album
the
to
best at
where
it almost.
to where it's not
Almost.
it's not just music per se. To me it's like watching a movie, but you're listening to a movie. That's how I
Right.
look at it.
right.
And The Wall, I would say, is another perfect example of that too. But like I said, there's a lot of good songs on The Wall, and I think, like, I'm not holding The Wall down or saying that it's not as good as Dark Side of the Moon, because in my opinion, I like Dark Side of the Moon better. Your opinion, you like The Wall better. But
I think Dark Side's better. But
yeah, I mean, to each their
to
own.
each their own.
But
I
like,
wasn't here to debate that.
yeah, exactly. No,
The Wall did actually have a movie with it, though.
Well, it
We
did.
did later on.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it's really. I remember seeing The Wall when I was like, I don't know, probably middle school, and I remember like going to school and being like, "Hey, have you guys seen The Wall?" Expecting like teenage kids and adolescents to like know what The Wall was. Like, I guess if they had cool parents, they probably knew what The Wall was.
Yeah.
Or
I had similar experiences in
I
middle
don't.
school.
I don't know that my parents knew that I was watching The Wall. I don't know how they would feel about it either. I mean, my mom probably would have been like, whatever, and my dad would have been. My grandmother would have been like, that's Satanism. Like, she thought like everything was Satanism back in the day. But I don't know. I mean, you guys probably see The Wall right around the same time for the first time.
Yeah, I was middle school, high school.
Yeah.
Probably 7th grade.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so middle school. And like, I just remember rewatching it as an adult and like remembering like how fucked up I thought it was as a child, and then like still thinking like this is
Oh, it's
fucked up as an
definitely still
adult.
weird.
It's definitely a little
Yeah.
weird.
I mean, a lot of drugs were made, or a lot of drugs were made. They probably were made, but a lot of drugs were taken during the process of this album
Absolutely.
and making this movie. But
Oh, I'm sure.
then, I mean, not to elaborate on it much further, but like, you think The Wall is a better album, and I think Dark Side's a better album.
Well, no, I wouldn't say better
Just
album.
more
I just
influential?
I like it more, and it's more influential to
Yeah.
me.
Okay, well then that's what we'll go with. Then forgive me, I misspoke. But like I said, it's, to me, Pink Floyd is really good at, if it's almost all their albums to me after the Sid era, because I've already been there. I don't like the Sid era, but like all their albums are like a movie on
Yep.
Yeah,
on tape, on vinyl, on CD, whatever you want to say. But that, I think they're really good at capturing that, and that's something that can be said about damn near all their albums.
oh yeah.
So, Tristan, what do you got?
So for me, my first album, not first album, but probably the 10th on the list here, is just the start of metal, in my opinion, in general, was Black Sabbath's
Nirvana?
first album. Yeah.
Oh, my bad. I
Yeah.
thought you were talking about
Nirvana,
Nirvana.
you're right. Never mind.
Never mind what.
But their first album really changed the way that I looked at music.
Is that it's self-titled? Isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's a self-titled album.
Okay.
Yeah, it had The Wizard, NIB on it. It had Behind the Wall of Sleep.
I'm not
The
gonna
song,
lie.
the song
Self-titled
Black
song.
Sabbath.
Yeah, which was a true story. The story behind it is
Yeah.
really crazy.
I remember
Why?
when I first got into them, I heard the story of that song. I was like, whoa, it's pretty wild.
I'm not gonna lie. Never listened to it.
Really?
Like I know who Sabbath is, obviously. I mean,
That's one you need to listen to.
well, and
Absolutely.
I think that's a good idea. We'll kind of like, if we hear something that we hear one of us saying like we haven't listened to it, or obviously Dark Side of the Moon and the Wall we've all listened to. I would imagine that we've all listened to. It's almost a crime if you haven't at this point, you know. But I think we should kind of do that with like one album. Like, hey, I agree that I'm going to go back and listen to Black Sabbath's first album, and I'll let you guys know what I think about it, and we'll bring that to you in the future. Kind of because I mean that's us introducing new music to each other. You know, what
I'd
I mean?
like to listen to the Nashville Sound as well.
Yeah,
I can pick that out.
Nashville Sounds a Jason Isbell album for those of you that don't know. But I know who Sabbath is. Obviously, I mean Tony Iommi, fucking Ozzy.
So the story behind this album in particular, they were known as Earth before. They were kind of more of a jazzy sound.
See, I think I knew that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because the bass player and the drummer are both like jazz musicians.
Yeah, and you get that feel in like Planet Caravan, and there's some other stuff that you can really hear that in. But Tony Iommi chopped his fingers off as like his last day of work, and
I
as
knew
the
that as
band was
well.
going to go.
Mhm.
So that made him detune his guitar eventually, and that gave this way more grungy sound.
Mhm.
And when Ozzy came over one day to Geezer's house, he brought this black book, and they read this fucking story about.
Geezer's the bass player.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Geezer Butler.
They
knew
read
that.
the story about whatever it was, and then that night Geezer saw this black figure at the end of his bed with fiery red eyes, and it freaked him out so much that he had to run away. So that ended up being the title of that song because it happened on a Sunday with Black Sabbath.
Okay, gotcha.
So that alone is just such a creepy thing, but it really was like the start of doom metal and just like really heavy industrial felt metal in general. That album for me changed my life. It changed my perspective on how I viewed guitar playing because Tony Iommi's playing on this album is amazing, and the tones he uses are much different than what you heard in 1969.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
weren't light. They were very heavy
Different,
as
yeah.
opposed to, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, everything else that was going on in those days.
And as I said, not listening to this album, I think that like being a music fan, we all know that like a lot of famous musicians say how influential Sabbath was to them.
Absolutely.
Well,
Especially a lot of harder rock or metal
They
bands,
changed
whatever.
everything.
Yeah.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Black Sabbath basically are the fathers of metal.
And they're the goats. And to elaborate on that point, I think their album 13 sounded much more like Black Sabbath, their first album, than any of their other albums did.
Yeah.
They went back to their original sound on their last album, and I thought that was really,
See,
really cool.
For me, obviously, I know Sabbath as like, your Iron Mans and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but I
Fair
don't know
enough.
them in depth as an
Yeah.
album. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
know them as songs. So like I couldn't say, hey, that's really good. That's not. So like I said, it'll be my project for the week to go back and listen to this and let you know what I think.
I
of
haven't
it.
listened to a lot of Dio era Sabbath except for Heaven and Hell.
Heaven and Hell. That's the only
Yeah.
one I'm really familiar
When
with.
was Dio? When was his era?
Hell, I can't.
80.
Yeah,
So I think they
yeah.
broke
but-
up in like 79.
Was
something
it ever
like that.
anybody else other than Ozzy or Dio?
No.
Okay. See, I like Dio. Like I don't know that I know any
No,
Sabbath
their music.
Oh, you probably know the song Heaven and Hell.
Yeah, but their music didn't change too much.
No.
They really
Well,
is
I'm just
still
talking-
really good.
Yeah, I'm just talking straight from a vocalist standpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Dio, like Rainbow, was killer.
Rainbow's amazing.
But what and it always blew
Richie
my
Blackmore.
mind. Like it always blew my mind how good of a singer Ozzy really was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was a really good singer. But then like
His highs are insane.
it's I mean obviously later years we all seen the Osbournes, but it's crazy because like the man
Right.
can't put a sentence together, but he gets out and he still does it. He gets
And
out
he
there
still
and
talks
sings,
like
and
that
he's-
on stage. When
yeah.
I seen him in 2007, he
Dude's
was
still
like that.
putting out music today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was telling Tristan about this. I went to Ozfest, I believe it was 07. And
06.
06.
I went in 07.
And I was like 14 years old, I think it was. And my little brother went. Obviously, those of you probably don't know me or my family that much. You might, but my little brother's not one that you would picture seeing at an Ozfest. And my dad took us. And I remember the only reason Dad wanted to go was specifically to see Ozzy because Dad was a big Ozzy guy. And Ozzy wasn't there. And that was, like I said, I told you it was the last year that System was a band before they broke
Yep.
up, and like I got to see System and they were ready to go. It was a whole thing.
That's
But
cool because
Ozzy-
we'll talk about System again.
yeah, Ozzy never showed up and didn't play, so Dad was like so bummed. But like I don't know, there was a lot of great bands there. I'm not a huge metal guy like that, but there was a lot of great bands. But anyway, not to get off track too much, I'll go back and I'll listen to this because I don't know this album as a whole. I probably
You
should have listened to it
definitely
long
should.
before.
It's so
you know?
good.
Hey, it's one you need to listen to.
Yeah, and like I said, I'll do that because I think that's as one thing as not only musicians, because hearing certain music albums or musicians or songs or bands, whatever, it kind of shapes us or helps us grow in this direction or
Absolutely.
another. So I'll do that. I'll go back and I'll listen to this.
That'll
So-
probably be the only one you're going to want to listen to on that list.
yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, because if
Maybe
Nirvana's on there, I'm not listening to anything of it. But anyway,
I don't know.
I digress. So let's move on to another one by mine. So a lot of people know who James Taylor is, and a lot of people know songs by James Taylor. More specifically, I think Sweet Baby James is probably like his biggest known album. But for me, Mudslide Slim and the Blue Horizon is one of my most influential albums. I remember discovering this album. You know how Walmart has or used to have like the CD bins?
Yeah.
That were like $5, $3 less, whatever.
With
So I would
DVDs
just
too.
I would just go to those CD bins like when I was a teenager and just dig something out that like I didn't know. And I remember finding Sweet Baby James by James Taylor, and then Mudslide Slim was in there as well. And Mudslide Slim, I mean, it's James Taylor. If you've heard James Taylor, you know what James Taylor sounds like. But to me, like, it's really a perfect example of capturing James Taylor's sound. I mean, there's probably some songs on here that your average James Taylor listeners would know. To me, like, Machine Gun Kelly is one of my favorite songs on this song, and I'm talking about the song, not the rapper Machine Gun Kelly. But Hey Mister, That's Me Up on the Jukebox is another one you may have heard. You've Got a Friend is probably another big one. Love Has Brought Me Around. But Mudslide Slim's on here, and I think that's a great song. Like I said, I think it's just a perfect example of James Taylor's sound in one album. I mean, he kind of had like peaks and his downs, whereas some albums were really good and some albums weren't. But as a singer-songwriter, it's really influential to me in that way. I think James Taylor is one of the greats. And even if you're not into that singer-songwriter type stuff, I mean, dude was shooting heroin for a long time too. So like, you know, he wasn't just this singer-songwriter, Flowers and Love It. I mean, he was shooting heroin for a long time as well. But I just think as a singer-songwriter, this perfectly encapsulates him as a musician. And the Mudslide Slim and the Blue Horizon, if you haven't heard it, go check it out. I think it's great.
I've not heard it at all.
I'm not familiar with it.
See, and this
I've
is,
not listened to a lot of James Taylor, actually. I probably need to.
Yeah, me neither.
I love James Taylor. I think that James Taylor is probably one of the best singer-songwriters of all time.
His guitar playing is amazing.
Yeah, his guitar. I mean, his finger picking and his style is very,
absolutely.
very
Jess
great.
used to play a lot of that.
But it's a really good album. And then, like I said, if you haven't listened to James Taylor, you know, go back and listen to James Taylor. I mean, a lot of people know who James. I mean, Carolina in My Mind and all that. I mean, he's got big songs that people know of. But this is my favorite album by him. And like I said when we started, there's going to be some of these albums where like you guys aren't going to have much to say about it because you haven't listened to it or you don't know much about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then we're going to have some albums which are big that we're
Well,
all going to
Well,
talk about.
like my next album. If you don't know it, I don't know where you've been living.
Okay, well, go ahead. We'll lead into
It's
that.
Back in Black by AC/DC.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
if you don't know that, I don't know who you are.
I mean, it's AC/DC.
Yep.
I
It's
think that is not only is it their biggest album because it is just
Biggest, you mean just by like sale? Like,
Yeah, it's
sold?
one of the best selling albums of all time.
yeah.
And it's just one of their best. It really just captured their sound.
There's some songs on this that I like. I mean, that I think are good AC/DC songs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, in my opinion, there's only like 2 songs on there that I'm not the craziest about.
Yeah.
But the rest
What
of
are
them
those two?
the rest of them are bangers. What is it? I think what's the name of that?
Well,
song?
while you're looking, I think, you know, for me, Hell's Bells is pretty memorable. Shoot to Thrill is another one that's pretty memorable.
It's got a ton of hits on it.
Yeah, Back in Black is another, obviously.
Have
So,
a Drink on
Yeah,
me.
man,
Is
Have
one
a
of
Drink.
my favorite
Yeah, I
AC/DC
remember that
songs.
just
Reminds me of Beer Fest every single time.
Yeah.
But
One of my
that
favorite songs to play. Too.
I remember that riff was always like something that I really, really liked growing up when I first started playing guitar. You Shook Me All Night Long. I mean, I remember going to PNC Park as a kid, and like that was a song that they would play all the freaking
Giving the
time.
Oh,
Dog
yeah.
a Bone.
You know
That's
what I
a
mean?
great song
See,
as
that's
well.
one of the ones that it's not my favorite on the album.
Really?
I like the song. I like all the songs.
I mean, this is 1980.
It came out in 1980.
So obviously this is Brian, and it's not Ball.
It came out. It was the very
Was it
next
the
album.
first album
It was
after
the
the
Brian
first-
died?
It was the
First
first
album.
Brian album.
Yeah. And I don't know if we've touched. I mean,
Probably
we've touched on
my
it probably between us, but not as anything we've recorded. Like, to me, AC/DC was leaps and bounds better with Bon Scott. I think he's just a better. I'll say he's a better singer. Brian's a really good frontman. You know what I mean, he's a really good frontman. I don't think he doesn't have anywhere.
I think he replaced him very, very well.
Well,
the music itself kind of just dropped off, in my opinion. After.
In spots, I mean, because they got some albums that are definitely not.
The Razor's Edge is great.
Yeah, I mean that was when they
Thunderstruck
got their next hit after For Those About to Rock.
Yeah,
because after For Those About to Rock, I mean a lot of their shit was just no
they
one
had
really.
Who Made Who,
Which
was
it was a pretty decent hit.
Well, to me, I grew up on AC/DC. I mean, this is something that my
absolutely.
parents.
I can be like
same.
4 years old singing.
I think
Dirty
we can
Deeds.
all kind of agree to that, and I think that's kind of like our age thing because of our parents of their ages. You know what I mean? They were listening to what they listened to when they were our age when we were growing up, and I mean, I think a lot of us are introduced to AC/DC that way. It's not like AC/DC is one of those bands that we kind of just stumble upon ourselves as we get older.
No.
You know, and it's like I was going to mention earlier we were talking about Pink Floyd, like in my high school or Tristan and I's high school. Of course, Tristan's a few years younger than me, but I'm assuming it's still the same thing there, and I'm probably sure it was the same thing at you went to Liberty, right? Erik?
Yeah, we came out to Thunderstruck.
Well, no.
Football.
What I was gonna say was, I remember, especially Pink Floyd. Like everybody and their brother had a Pink Floyd T-shirt in high school.
Oh, sure, but
yeah, absolutely.
who actually listened to Pink Floyd?
Well, that's what I was about to say. Same thing with AC/DC. Like everybody had the Back in Black shirt, or like the
Walmart
dark side of the
sells
moon. Yeah, exactly. And it's like some of those people had no idea what they were listening to. Or, I mean, what they were wearing.
You walk up to him like, I love that album. I was like, well, what album?
Yeah, cool, man. Thanks, appreciate it. Mom bought me this shirt. You know what I mean? But to me, like as I was saying, like I think Bon is a better singer. I don't think many people would disagree with that.
Here's the way I put it: Bon sings, Brian screams.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect example.
I kind of disagree with that. I think Bon screams better, to be honest.
Well, I'm just talking about straight.
But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that Bon's a better singer altogether.
But they both have just the rasp, though.
Not to get too deep into the history, but if you go back and listen to Brian was in another band, Jordy.
Yeah, Jordy.
Yes.
If you listen to any of their
Completely
stuff,
different vocals.
Yeah, he sings, and he's actually got a great singing voice.
Well, and I think that's what it was.
It doesn't even sound like him. You
No, it
would have
doesn't.
no idea.
I think he came in trying to replace Bon, and he did the best that he could to
He,
beat Bon
I
Scott.
think he is one of the best transitions ever in music, as
Well,
far as
and
losing a vocalist.
with Back in Black, they were the band was just so down.
Think about
it. With that album, they just kind of came out swinging.
Can you listen to any other band that loses a vocalist, that loses... Look at a lot of different bands
Well, yeah.
that lose a player.
Yeah, well, I agree. But,
Vocalists and guitar players are like some of the most noticeable members.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
You notice it every time.
It's like, and not to like dive into like the history of AC/DC, like you had said, Erik, but like this is their first album without Bon and their first album with Brian, so it's kind of a notable thing to say about it. I always thought the Bon has a better singer, and I remember at a young age listening to AC/DC, and then I found out, hey, this is a different singer than what was on the earlier stuff. Like I always thought, like, hey man, that's a great. It's hardly noticeable, but as you grow older, like it's very, very noticeable.
It's very, very
night and
noticeable,
day.
especially after Back in Black.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said with him screaming. Like Bon had that really high register.
Yeah.
You know, that he can get to, and like you could hear Brian getting there, but it was almost like a screamer forced.
So I would argue that Back in Black is their most different album away from what they were doing originally.
Well, that is actually true because I read the book not too long ago, the AC/DC book. And,
you would. I mean, you love AC/DC.
And Back in Black was actually their most produced album.
You can hear it very, very clearly.
Oh, yeah.
The rest of their albums sound raw, especially with Bon singing, and he has a more raw voice. But even away from that, they're musically, Back in Black for me is their most eclectic album as far as scale choicing goes, as far as even drum beats too.
I understand what you're saying, and like to the normal music listener, they might not understand the production like quality of them certain albums because it's crazy. You listen to certain albums, like I like Mastodon a lot,
technology too, but
and people hate on Mastodon, but like if you listen to Mastodon albums, like the production quality on them are not good at all, and it's like. I'm sorry. To me, I don't think they're very good at all. And it's like we were kind of messing around with John Mayer earlier. Mm-hmm. Like John Mayer's early albums, the production on it were not good at all.
Marilyn Manson has a bunch of albums that are just like terrible. It sounds like they're recorded with a toaster.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. But anyway, I mean, AC/DC makes sense. I mean, you're a big AC/DC
That's a great
fan.
album choice, though.
They're probably,
honestly.
I mean, I think Powerage to me is my
classic
favorite
rock
AC/DC
thing.
album. But I mean, AC/DC I don't think is very influential to me. But I mean, to each their own. Once
Well,
again,
I mean, when I started learning how to play music, I was big into rock and roll.
That
Yeah.
could probably be a favorite of mine that isn't that influential in my playing. I could
Yeah.
see that.
see, but once again, if I was just talking about like some of my favorite albums, like Power Ridge would be the number one AC/DC album in my list. That
I mean,
would
it's
be-
a good album. Don't get me wrong.
I just like Power Ridge, and like we talked about, like not on the podcast, but Power Ridge to me like doesn't have hits, but to me it's just a kick-ass album.
Yeah,
for
it is a
Oh, it
kick-ass
is.
album. I like
Alright.
High Voltage, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think that's probably my favorite older AC/DC album.
All right, what do you got for us, Tristan?
Scars on Broadway's first album.
Don't even know who Scars on
I have
Broadway
no
is.
idea who
So
that is.
Here we go.
the guitar player from System, okay, Darren McCallion.
Yeah.
Okay, that's his side band.
Okay.
And when you start to listen to that first album, you very, very quickly realize that man is System of a Down with
Yeah.
Surge singing. No,
I mean, to me, like Surge. Well, I mean, I haven't listened to him, but like to me, Surge is that's what is recognizable.
and
to
you,
me.
yes, but as far as playing and the music goes, you can 100% hear that he is like all of System of a Down. Everything that he does.
I can understand that. I mean, his guitar playing. When you hear System, I mean, his guitar playing stands out. That's, I mean, that's one of
So
those
on the
things.
first album, though, it is John Doleman from the System of a Down, their drummer
Mhm.
on the first album. On his latest album, the one that came out in 2018, I think, it's him playing drums.
You know what
So
though?
he does everything. He plays bass, vocals, and guitar in this album, and it's so good. Like every single song is amazing.
I kind of see what you're saying because Surge's solo stuff, I didn't care.
It's
for.
a lot different.
I didn't care for it.
Well, he doesn't have a musician. He has no. It's not Darren playing, so it
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
completely
No,
different.
All I was saying was like I didn't care for it like I
Yeah.
cared for System.
So if to an average listener, if you had heard "Lonely Day," maybe that was your only System song, and you heard this album, you would think that this was System of a Down. Like you would literally not even know.
Lonely Day is not a bad song, but like
No,
it's
I-
not great System to me.
I don't think that they've made a bad song, to be honest. I think they
Really?
may have 2 or 3. Like
I really hold System in high regard. I think System's a great band.
I think they're one of the greatest bands ever. If you look at their discography, as far as making bad songs.
Well, I mean, teach their own. There's people out there that think Nirvana is the best band ever, but
Yeah, but
all I'm
as far
trying
as songwriting goes, they're so different in their choices all the time. But at the same time is still very true to what System does.
yes, to me, like I really like early System because like to me, System kind of went in an arc as well as a lot of bands do. Like their early stuff doesn't necessarily sound very similar to their
Like
later
Sugar,
stuff.
dude, I love their first album.
Yeah, it's not
System
one of
of
my
a Down,
favorites. To
yeah.
me, Mesmerize is my favorite System album.
That's their newest one.
No, not newest. Hypnotize was after Mesmerize.
Yeah, but it was like a double album.
Yeah, but Mesmerize to me had BYB was really one of those.
Yeah.
Like that's when it became almost radio friendly. Like
Yeah,
System was like
no, I
played on the
can see
radio
that.
with that. I mean, Chop Suey was obviously a big song as well,
Mhm.
but BYB was really like, and they still play BYB on like the
Oh
radios,
yeah,
the rock
absolutely.
radio
Chop
stations
Suey,
around here.
Toxicity.
Yeah.
And that for me, all of the radio stuff is the worst System for me. I think a lot of their
I
other
would
shit,
probably agree. I think
got a lot better.
Toxicity is one of their best albums. I think Toxicity is a great
all
album.
of, I can't argue.
Yeah. To me, I just really like
Steal This
Mesmerize,
album
always did.
is everyone's worst in my opinion, and even that album is amazing.
Steal This album's not
Boom,
bad.
Chicken Stew, Inversion.
But once again, to me, like
Intervision, I'm
that
sorry.
earlier System sounds a lot different than what you're hearing on like Toxicity, Mesmerize, and Hypnotize.
Yes and no.
It's almost
I think-
harder to me.
Oh yeah, for sure. It
That's
was a
what I
lot
mean.
heavier, but
Yeah.
they got more produced. Rick Rubin, that's another one
Well,
that I'd
yeah.
like to talk about him in the
Mhm.
future. But
Yeah.
he produced all of their albums. But you can still hear it. He didn't produce Scars on Broadway, and you can still 100% hear what Darren's doing by himself on the Scars album. It's one I would recommend that you listen to.
Yeah.
It's more of a punk feel. I mean, a lot of their stuff it's 3-minute songs. Like
Yeah.
System doesn't have too many 6 and 7
Well,
minute
they're
songs.
not
if
a
any,
jam band.
actually.
Yeah, they're not a jam band. Yeah.
They keep everything pretty cut
They're
short.
not
and
Pink
that's
Floyd,
kind
they're
of
not
what I
Dave
love
Matthews.
about Darren. He's a pretty refreshing break from some of the more progressive stuff that I like to
Yeah.
listen to.
Well, I mean, have you listened to a lot of System, Eric?
No.
Oh, dude, they're
I mean,
amazing.
do you
They're one of the
know-
best
I mean-
bands ever. I don't care what anyone says.
You said Chop Suey. I know that song.
Yeah.
That's about the extent of my System of a Down knowledge.
And every single song on that album continues to kill.
So
Like,
I mean,
Toxicity is an amazing album. Dear Dance.
no, I
like-
think Toxicity is great. I like if I'm sitting down with somebody that has not listened to a bunch of System,
Yeah.
I'm not going to give them Toxicity to listen to because I feel like Toxicity is still that like that chunky guitar.
Yeah, it
heavy,
is. It's a
where,
lot.
Where to me, Mesmerize is almost
It's a little softer,
it's
yeah.
softer and
Radio,
cleaner,
video,
but you're
yeah.
still getting
Soldier side, but you're still getting System.
You're still getting
I get
System,
that.
but it's not. That's if to me, if I'm saying, hey, you've never listened to System of a Down before, go listen to Mesmerize.
Yeah.
Because that's like an intro to System to me. To where like if you go back and you're like, hey, go listen to Toxicity or go listen to Steal This Album or some of the earlier ones. Like to me, like I said, it's a little harder, and for somebody that doesn't necessarily like that harder type of music, they're not gonna get into it as easily as somebody would listen to Mesmerize, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, obviously we're talking about what's the name of the band?
Scars on Broadway.
Yeah, we're talking about Scars on Broadway. So like for me to say, hey, Erik, go listen to System, it's not the same thing. I mean, like you said, it's very similar.
Dude, listen, when you listen to this album, you're going to be like, that's not System. Like, except you don't have Surge. That's pretty much your only feel. And even his new album feels like that.
Like, Surge and Darren, their voices.
This just meld so well.
Yeah, their voices went really well together. And it's like, you hear Surge. I mean, Surge is what you hear, but like Darren's like, I don't want to say harmonies, but sometimes yes,
he does.
Sometimes no. But just his backing vocals are really, really present in System. If you're listening to them listen to them in a large capacity, you can really hear Darren's vocals. But like I said, this might be something you want to check out, Erik. I don't know. I can't describe it for you, but I would definitely recommend if you haven't listened to a lot of System, go listen to Mesmerize because I think that's a very
anything you listen to is going to be good.
I mean, I love System, so like I would say like I can put on any System album and enjoy it. But for somebody that hasn't listened to a bunch of System, I wouldn't recommend going and listening to their early stuff unless that's the type of stuff that I know that person's going to like.
Right. Well, I mean, that might be some homework for me to try to find some System of a Down stuff that I like.
Listen, Scars on Broadway. I'm telling you, listen to that first album. It is so good. It is one of my favorite albums. All right, Josh, what do you got next?
Okay, so for me, I'm trying to like give us some albums that maybe we can have conversations about instead of just me saying, "Hey, this is a really good album. You should check it out," and you guys don't have anything to say about it. I'll just go with this one. The Black Crowes are really, really influential to me. I think the Black Crowes.
Oh yeah.
Me too.
I think they're a great. I think they're a great representation of almost Southern rock.
Nirvana's better, but
yeah. Okay, here we go. Somebody's been drinking too much, talking about Nirvana over there. So for me, my favorite Black Crowes album is the Southern Harmony and Music Companion. There's probably a lot of songs on that album that people are familiar with, and there's probably a lot of songs that people aren't familiar with. To me,
Remedy's on that album, which is
Sting Me's on that album.
Yeah.
To me, like the song that stands out to me in that album is Thorn in My Pride.
That's a good one.
I think Thorn in My Pride is a really, really, really good song. But I mean, there's once again like the only real hits are probably Remedy and Sting Me.
Yeah.
And they're the first two songs on that album. But to me, the Black Crowes are like a perfect blend of alternative kind of 90s rock that was coming out, but also like your parents' rock and roll as well.
Yeah.
It's like Southern rock mixed with blues rock mixed with, it's just, the Black Crowes were a great band to me. And it's a shame that they're not like still putting out a bunch of albums like they used to.
I think they're either going on tour or putting out an album.
Well, it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think his name's Christopher Robin. Like Chris Robin is
Chris Robinson?
Robinson, maybe?
It's Robinson.
Yeah, him and his brother are like his brother's a
The
guitar
singer
player.
and guitar player.
Yeah, they're brothers, and I think they had like a spat for a long time, and that's the reason they weren't together. Their cover of what is it, Baby?
Hard to Handle.
Yeah, Hard to Handle, because that's originally Otis Redding, I believe it is. That's a really good cover. People know that probably more than they know Otis's version.
Yeah, anybody you talk to is going to know the Black Crowes version over anything else.
Yeah, and another big one, obviously, is She Talks to Angels. That's probably
that song's huge.
Being in a bar band.
I think that's probably their biggest hit.
Yeah, being in a bar band, people ask for She Talks to Angels all the time.
We used to play it all the time.
I know that for sure.
Yeah, but to me, like, if you haven't listened to the Black Crowes in a whole album's worth or ingested like a whole album, you just know songs, like check this album out because I think it's a perfect blend.
I'll have to do that because I'm not listening to any of the Black
check this
Crowes.
album out.
Oh, you need to. This is a good album.
They always had such a unique sound that I really appreciated.
Yeah, they're very unique in the way that they sound. It's very, and Chris
not only vocally, but like
I was gonna say his voice is very differently. But yeah, they were doing a lot of stuff that was very different than your kind of, because 92 was grunge. I mean, grunge. When did grunge really hit? Was like the early 90s,
early
right?
90s.
Yeah, I mean Nirvana's first album was 88.
Was it 88?
Yeah, it is actually a lot.
It wasn't
older
Nevermind
than you
though, right? When
no,
Nevermind come out
was like 94.
I was gonna say like early 90s,
Something
mid 90s.
like that.
Yeah. So I mean, you got to figure this was a big grunge
Grunge
time.
was Soundgarden, man.
They
same time,
they weren't putting out grunge in 92. They were putting out like Southern rock, basically roots rock.
Which is a little bit different. I mean, you had
refreshing.
Skinner's had a really good album in 90. I don't remember which one it was.
No, they didn't.
Skinner didn't make a good album after the plane crash.
Yeah, they do.
No.
Dude, come on.
No. I'm sorry. Ronnie Van Zant was Skinner.
Whatever. All right.
I mean, I'm not saying like he's the only reason Skinner, but like his brother, not a bad singer or anything like that. But like
he's just it's not Skinner. It's not Skinner.
But
To me,
all
they
I can
didn't-
do is write about it, dude. Whatever.
What do you mean? That's an old one.
That's an old one.
Not-
No, it's not.
Yes,
Yes,
it
it
is.
is.
What?
Yeah.
Yes. All I can do to write about it is old, my friend. That is Ronnie singing on that song.
That's a Ronnie song.
Yes. All I can do is that's Ronnie.
That's Ronnie.
Why you look at me like you just seen the Ghost
Dude,
of
I
Christmas
don't think
Past,
so.
my friend? Yes, I know
Dude.
so.
Oh,
What album was it on?
oh hell!
You're really gonna make me look this up in the
Yes,
middle of the
because I'm
podcast?
telling
I'm gonna
you.
look it up too.
Hold on, let me find the
I'm
answer.
telling you. It
Let
was
me
like
find-
91, 92.
We're gonna find the answer to your question. All right, so all I can do is write about it was on "Give Me Back My Bullets," which was 1976, not 1991 or 92.
All right, I was wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's not like we know more. We just knew that. Anyway, you're young. It's not. You got plenty of time to learn,
Whatever.
Tristan.
You'll figure it out
A
when you
little
get.
upset. But yeah, that was the album before Street Survivors. Originally, the Street Survivors cover had them standing in the street and there was flames all around them. I don't know if you guys know that album cover, but that's what the
Yeah.
album cover originally was released as. The plane crash happened. They pulled everything off the shelves and then had to put another album out without the fire around them because they were worried about them, the plane crash and the fire engulfing them, flames, the people dying and the thing. So that's kind of a cool little fun fact for you there. Fun fact for you for the day. All right, fine. There's your fun fact.
Anyway, to jump off your Black Crows and their distinct sound, my next album is The Whippoorwill by Blackberry Smoke.
Yeah, and I can't say enough good things about Blackberry Smoke. I've seen them in concert twice,
Oh, I'm jealous.
and I haven't
Another
seen
one I
them
haven't heard of.
just in concert. But I went to Farm Aid and they played like a 45-minute to an hour set both
Oh, okay.
times. I knew about them before that. They are Skinnerd reinvented today, I think,
Oh yeah,
and they do a really, really good job out of it.
they're such a killer band.
They're very southern rock with also kind of a country undertone, not much, but it's there.
Kind of.
Also kind of bluesy rock in a little bit of ways, but they really show that southern rock kind of.
It's really the essence of Skinnerd.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that. But no, it's another great album and a lot of good songs on that album by them as well.
Like one of my favorite songs off that album is Pretty Little Lie.
Pretty Little Lies is a great song.
Oh.
You know, not to talk about band practice or anything here, but we need to implement some Blackberry Smoke because I'd totally be fine with doing Blackberry Smoke.
Oh, I'd love that.
If you're listening out there, Blackberry Smoke, we're just joking. We're not going to play any of your music. Yeah, they are. So you don't know them at all?
No, I've heard the name. I feel like I've heard a song or two, but I'm not familiar with the work.
I'm trying to think. There's one song that like
There's some stuff off.
Yeah,
one of their
that's what
first
I was
albums.
just looking up. There's one song that I can think of, but I can't find it.
to me the like Whippoorwill is probably like their most known album. I would say.
It is.
I don't know. 6 Ways to Sunday is another big one. I mean, to me, like every song on this album is a very, very good song. This is another great choice that I like. It's a very good album to me. I don't know if it's like super influential on me, but like it's a great album in a whole.
It has definitely.
Everybody Knows
it
She's
has-
Mine, another good one. One Horse Town. I mean, I can just scroll
One
down.
Horse Town is a fantastic
Yeah.
song.
I mean, there's a lot. The Whippoorwill's a great song too.
Yeah.
But you can just go down like. To me, like the first like 7 songs on the album are so strong that like even if the rest of the songs on the album weren't great, it would still be a great album.
Oh, for sure.
No, but like if you haven't listened to Blackberry Smoke, you definitely should listen to Blackberry
The
Smoke.
Whippoorwill is definitely an album I would recommend you listen to if you haven't.
Yeah.
Okay, I
If
will
you're-
definitely check
If
that
you're
out,
just getting into Blackberry Smoke, go and listen to the Whippoorwill because I think it's a great album.
Okay.
I agree 100%. What do you got for us, Tristan?
All right. Seasons in the Abyss from Slayer.
Oh, Slayer.
I'm not going to have much about this, so you can go ahead and talk.
Absolutely. It was probably one of the most influential albums on my playing. It was probably one of the albums that I learned the most riffs from. Spirit in Black, War Ensemble, Dead Skin Mask, Skeletons of Society, Temptation, Born of Fire, Blood Red,
See,
Expendable Youth. Every song on this album, I probably learned at least
To
a
me-
riff or two from.
to me, this is a perfect example of how different we are as musicians.
Absolutely.
Because like you guys have never listened to James Taylor in depth, but like I like Slayer.
Nope.
Slayer does absolutely nothing for me.
I'm in that
to
same
me,
boat.
it's speed thrash metal that just does
It
nothing.
absolutely is.
It's like, see, can we play it any faster? Can we do anything faster? I mean, trust me,
That
everybody.
was the point of their solos.
should-
Actually, was it didn't even have to make sense. They just wanted to play
most
it as
people. I don't
fast and
want
as
to say most
shreddy as
people.
possible.
If you know who Slayer is, you probably know what Raining Blood is. And I remember growing up in high school and like the people that listen to Slayer, like the only song they knew was Raining Blood.
Yeah,
that was probably
that's
me because I
everyone.
never listened to Slayer that much. But to
That's,
me,
that's the only song I'm really familiar
Yeah.
with. I've listened to other Slayer, and I just don't like Slayer.
I mean, I know that. Like I know that.
Mhm.
I actually know that I learned to play that intro to Raining Blood at some point. But like, you know, this is why we're different, and this is what I wanted to bring up and say that because like Slayer wouldn't even come into like
yeah,
something that I would listen to.
yeah,
Like I wouldn't put on Slayer and be like, "Yep, I'm gonna have me a glass of bourbon, smoke me a cigar. Like it's not something that I'm gonna sit back, relax and listen to. And that's why we're different, because this is something that obviously you would listen to.
Yeah. This is something I jam going down the road. This is something I used to listen to all the time. I mean, it's just angst in general. I love Slayer. I love Jeff Hanneman's guitar playing. Seasons in the Abyss, the song itself is very drawn out for Slayer. I thought that it's pretty much my favorite Slayer album, as far as you're talking about Rain in Blood. That one had, Raining Blood.
Yeah, it does nothing for me at all. I'm not going to say that like I couldn't listen to it, because like the one thing that I can say about music is I try to, like, if I don't like something, I still try to find something about the music that I can enjoy or appreciate.
See, and that's where I'm at with it. Maybe I could try to get through this album, but it'd be rough on me.
Yeah, I know.
Angel of Death, though, I couldn't think of it piece by piece. This album, Rain and Blood, had a bunch of really good ones too. But
see,
if you listen for just guitar work, you could probably get a lot more out of it than you think. But it's the heaviness, it's the vocals, it's the things like that. Learning how to play
Not to throw another band in there, because I don't want to say they're similar, but I want to say maybe in the same realm. Like, not to bash anybody or bring anybody up, but it's not one of our favorite albums. But Pantera, for instance, Dimebag, incredible guitar player.
Yeah,
I almost feel like Pantera kind of dumbed him down, as like his playing in Pantera was dumbed down. It's not as good as it could have been to me, because I feel like
that's very true.
Pantera,
because he stuck to being heavy instead of doing everything that he could.
Pantera's early like glam rock stuff, very, very different than
absolutely. It was very more Randy Rhoads oriented as opposed to heavier.
Your vulgar display of power and all that stuff. And I feel like, I don't know, a lot of people like Pantera, but like Phil, to me, terrible frontman.
Oh, dude, you were insane. He is quite literally one of the best metal vocalists to ever exist.
Yeah, and that's where I would completely disagree.
His highs and his lows. The way he can do highs like Judas Priest, and if you listen to Scour, his other bands, his lows are just like it doesn't even sound human half the time.
I don't think it's good. I think that anybody could sing for Pantera and it would sound better.
Nah.
And I'm probably going to take a lot of crap for that, because there's probably a lot of people out there that really like Pantera that are probably going to call me an idiot. But at the same time, I think that Dimebag's probably one of the best guitar players to ever play. I think that he was very influential in a lot of the guitar players out there nowadays. Yeah. But like I said, I think that he could have been better. I feel like Pantera, he had more to give, is how I want to say.
Yeah, he could have, if he would have been
where you were talking about
somebody like Ozzy, he could have been way more versatile with his
you were kind of talking about Slayer and like me being able to pull out just like guitar from it. Where to me, like, I listen to Pantera and I'm like, man, Dimebag's such a great guitar player.
Yeah. But that was one of his biggest influences.
But then Phil starts singing and I'm like,
Nah, Phil is, I promise. Phil has I think 4 bands: Super Joint, Ritual, Scour, Pantera, and Phil and Semno and the Illegals.
Well,
they are all really good bands.
And I'm almost positive, like, Phil joined the band and it changed Pantera and how they sound.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Phil's like, listen to Slayer and listen to all this stuff, because it wasn't stuff that they necessarily were into.
I mean, exactly. To a certain degree, yeah.
And I mean, Slayer's not on our list. Slayer is on your list. Pantera's not on our list. But like you would.
Pantera didn't make my list, and that was probably. I don't even have an honorable mention for it, but it could have.
Well, all I was trying to say was where you had said that I could probably appreciate the guitar from Slayer as one of the main things. I was just trying to kind of liken that to me appreciating Dimebag as a guitar player, but not really thinking Pantera.
Well, Dimebag was much more versatile. I mean, his rhythmic playing was a lot different, he had more style to him.
Listen to the differences through the albums for Pantera. Like, it's a very different time.
Like, Slayer's always considered as thrash metal, but I don't agree with that at all. They're way more like death metal and way more.
To me, it's speed
in the
metal.
Harder roots.
Speed metal.
Yeah, but that's not thrash metal. If you listen to Anthrax and them two, they're completely different sounds.
There's so many different subgenres of metal. I mean, you could argue that all day. It's metal to me.
Rhythmic preference, or not rhythmic preference, but rhythmic choice is usually what defines a genre, in my opinion.
All right, so that is 3 albums apiece for us. So if you guys are listening, if you got to this point in the podcast, you've heard 9 different albums that we have all talked about, some that we talked about in depth and some that we didn't really have much to say about. Either way, we like these albums for a reason, and we think you guys should check them out. I think that one good thing about this podcast is not only are we going to be able to like grow as music consumers, but like we're going to maybe find some things that we really like that we didn't know even existed, or some things that like we thought weren't great, and then we listened to it in depth and realized how much better it was than what we originally thought.
Things we maybe want to hate on more.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't think anybody's going to sway me on my opinion of Nirvana. I'm sure if you guys continue to listen to this and we get
You
to
will.
like
You will be swayed
I don't
slightly.
think so at all. But we get to like episode 900 and you're like, yep, Josh still doesn't like Nirvana. I think that's a possibility. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be there with you too.
Yeah. So anyway, check out our Facebook page, the Music Dicts on Facebook. So if you guys have any questions, concerns, comments that you guys would like to send to us, you can do that on our Facebook page and just send a message on there. But you can also send us an email at musicdicts@gmail.com. You can do that. We're gonna have a Instagram page up in the works soon. We're also going to have a web page up in the works very soon. But I think most importantly, tell your friends. If you enjoy this podcast, tell your friends about it. Let this thing grow. Help us grow this thing so we can get it to as many listeners as possible. That way, this grows. We can reach people, and then we get ideas from you. We want to make this.
Let us know.
Yeah, we want to make this a big a brotherhood, a sisterhood, whatever you want to call it. We want to let this thing grow. We want opinions from you. We want ideas from you. We want to know what you guys want to hear. So not only can we impress you all, but we can reach other people that we wouldn't have reached otherwise. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. We're going to continue this on the next episode. We're going to break this one up into a couple parts. That way, it's not as long for you guys to listen to. Anyway, thank you guys for listening to Music Dicks. We'll see you again next time.